to our second game of the night, Kitrinos Inside the Cube. Um, this is, I guess, a filler game because, well, that actually had to relate to what was originally going to be reviewed this week. But it turns out one of the things was going to be an early access, and it's going free to play next week, I believe. Still, I think going to be free to play early access, but we'll still do a video on that probably next week. Anyway, getting back to this. So, Kitrinos Inside the Cube is an adventure game. Point and click.
But puzzle oriented. It's not like it's puzzle oriented. It's not like and not like inventory puzzles. There are literally 2 inventory items in the entire game.
Yeah.
Which is weird because there are like 8 inventory slots.
Yeah. Like this harkens back to the late 90s style of adventure games. And if you don't remember what that was, I mean, outside of, the last days of Sierra and LucasArts, missed the likes. Yeah, games that aped the style, the direction, the aesthetics, the puzzle building of Myst. Although in this case, there's also a bit of Zorik Grand Inquisitor here because it's got a 360 rotational field, which was a hallmark of this realistic, photo style, like a few years after Myst. Myst itself was pure static because of it was built off the hypercar technology, but that's a digression into other things.
That's one of my digressions. Let's be real here.
So what you do here in Kitrinos is it is the year 1961. You are Professor Dyermarks. You are an Indiana Jones style archaeologist. Read grave robbing colonialist. Like, yeah, I'm like, that's what he actually is, folks. But anyway,
and you find this weird cube or something deep in a pyramid or something, and you touch it, and it sucks your soul in.
He's digging in a pyramid, and you're in this. You discover this black cube that has the history of Terra. And apparently this is a new game in a series called Black Cube, which I have never experienced before.
Yeah, the ending of the game has a big and this is what happens in the future of this game. Title.
Yeah. And this was a small thing, as evidenced by the fact that you can't really explore all that much, and it really is a bunch of thin connective tissue to the puzzles. And let me tell you, one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this game was to, I'm going to be honest, rail against this style of game in general. Because this is about the most obtuse of obtuse puzzle stylings.
Yeah, I think the only reason the things in this game are really solvable at all is because there is so little that you can actually interact with.
Right.
Because or anything that has observable stuff besides background texture.
Yeah. Because what we're talking about here is really, really alien worlds. So you don't know what things are, at all.
Mm-hmm. You can only interact with things that have the little translucent circly thing that indicates that you can interact with them over them.
Yeah. It's solvable in theory, but
yeah, none of the puzzles are actually super hard. It's just hard to figure out what the puzzle you're trying to solve is a couple times.
We call that being obtuse.
Mm-hmm. And that's more that part's more on the game world itself. Like, it makes sense that this shit's obtuse and confusing, but that doesn't make it any more fun to solve. When you're literally not sure what you're doing. And
the puzzles are a block switching puzzle, a pseudo Rubik's Cube, except it's a sphere, and the whole point is each of the 8 faces has a symbol on it, and you have to get the right 2 symbols. And then there's one of those rolling ball circle maze things. And then the last puzzle is actually kind of tricky. Oh, and there's one inventory puzzle where you use the one non-journal item you get on an object.
Yeah.
Of course, the real hardest puzzle in the game is that since you start out in weird spiral Escher staircase land, figuring out which way is forward and which way is sideways. Because when you start out, you basically have 3 directions to go, and 2 of them are sideways and 1 of them is back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was sort of in that first area for about 15 minutes trying to find a new screen that I hadn't seen before.
Always the best type of gameplay.
Right. I like the music is also appropriately otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
Except at the very beginning when it's very adventure serial based.
Yeah, during the opening movie.
Yeah.
Which is not skippable as far as I can tell, by the way.
And yeah, that's about it. There's not a lot to this game, which was kind of the point. It's reading up on the notes here. It was a game that was made for a game jam in 2 weeks,
Which I guess the computer modeling is kind of impressive for fast. And when you transition between a different area, there's a weird thing where you might just have a spacesuit appear on you for no reason or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But ultimately, even as the thing that it is, I can't recommend it because it's just too alien for its own good. The aesthetics are nice, but they are indeed so much window dressing for very surprisingly complicated puzzles until you know how to do them. Then they're not so complicated. Granted, that's kind of puzzle game design in a nutshell, but it's I cannot stress enough the obtuseness of.
Yeah, there's one puzzle you can you have 2 choices: spend a long ass time brute forcing it, or get the answer in an obscure form from a very far away part of the level.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, basically, there are, on any given screen, there are only 2 or 3 things you can interact with, and most of those are go to the next and previous area things.
Right. And yeah, that small games, small reviews, relatively speaking.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting experience. It's not. I mean, you said it's free, right? So it's not like you're gonna lose out on anything by it. But the puzzles, if you try to do it without looking up any answers, the puzzles will be very difficult. My biggest suggestions are to save frustration. Is remember that there are 2 pages in your journal, and also take a screenshot of the 2nd page in your journal, and just have that open in another window. because otherwise, whenever you leave a puzzle, it gets reset, which is good because several of the puzzles you can become stuck in and have to reset. But yeah, once if you keep the symbol page on hand, the remainder is not super hard.
Right. Anyway, so that'll about do it for Kitrinos here. Stay tuned. Up next is Super Inefficient Golf.